It's now confirmed by Donald Trump via a social media post that that he and no other U.S. official will attend the G20 Summit, Leaders Summit in Johannesburg on the 22nd and the 23rd of November. It raises some doubts about the summit's outcomes, its legacy projects, and even the future relevance of the G20. There have been, of course, pre-summit tensions, key preparatory meetings. It's the Sherpa and the foreign ministers meeting failed to finalize a summit communique. It's also events which Donald Trump and his administration has boycotted. But now Donald Trump saying the U.S. will not attend, largely based off the false claims of alleged persecution by the South African government on particularly white Afrikaans-speaking South Africans. But what does this mean, if any, for the preparations and over the next 2 weeks on the G20 Summit, and what it would mean on the future of the multilateral body? Dr Kingsley Makhubela is a former diplomat, now a risk analyst. Good morning, Kingsley. Really appreciate your time. I don't think it's worthwhile going over again the false premise under which Donald Trump is deciding whether or not to attend the G20 summit, because it seems to be far more than just the false accusations of persecution of white Afrikaans-speaking South Africans, doesn't it?
Good morning, Lester. It's a bit unfortunate because what Donald Trump is doing is essentially to isolate America. So the United States won't be here when critical issues are being discussed. So that's where it's a problem. I think part of this, Lester, it's lack of grasping about how the world is changing and changing very fast. That the United States is no longer the only show in town. There are the key role players that are there that would take his place. But it's unlikely that you won't see any American representative. What you are likely to see, Lester, it's a very junior official who will be delegated to attend the meeting and to, in a way, exercise a veto over the outcome document, because the G20, it's all about the leaders' communique at the end of the day that will convey a key message around issues that have to do with the global debt, the global economy, conflicts, and so on. So you're unlikely to see that. I've seen during the weekend that the health consensus, the Americans are actually exercising that veto to say, we don't agree with this. So if you don't have consensus, you are unlikely to get a document that comes out of this. I think that's what the big problem is.
Because on the agenda, or what has already been discussed in the year-long meetings already with the different facets of the G20, whether it be the Finance Ministers Summit or whether it be the Environment Ministers Summit, what will be on that agenda in 2 weeks' time will be largely around debt restructuring for poorer nations, also the climate emergency, and what richer countries who have already used and built economies on exploiting fossil fuels, what they would need to return, also global equality. And those talking points are essentially talking points which Donald Trump himself, his policy, has largely railed against. So why would he want to be part of a summit where the things that he essentially hates will be discussed and will most likely pass?
You know, Lester, if you look at, for instance, the Chinese, how they've evolved in terms of clean energy. So they will take a center stage and they are providing leadership in terms of that. So he's going to lose out in terms of his political rivalry at the international level. That's one issue. The United States is currently having serious public debt. I think the American public debt ran close to $30 trillion or $32 trillion. It's a huge challenge because the global debt, Lester, runs at $335, $36 trillion of the global economy that is $120 trillion. So you're having a huge problem in terms of that. there's a question around the resolution of conflicts around the world. The United States is so fundamentally involved, they won't be able to participate meaningfully, and they've lost the opportunity for a meaningful participation by delegating people whose task is to come and say, we don't agree with this, we agree with that. So the issue is the absence of a global consensus, particularly at a delicate time around the world. That would be unfortunate for the United States not to be there. However, having said that, the show would go on. If they are not there, they will lose out.
But South Africa hands over to the United States, who holds the presidency of the G20 in 2026. There is the traditional formal handing over. There's a photo opportunity, and then the incoming presidency of the country, or the incoming presidency, their head of state then delivers a speech. That won't happen come 2 weeks' time. But also the first G20 meeting for 2026 that's supposed to be held in Miami at the end of 2026 will take place in December. Donald Trump has already vocalized that South Africa shouldn't even be a member state of the G20. Invitations to attend are sent out by the host country. Is this a way of maybe isolating South Africa, or maybe even sanctioning South Africa without officially doing so?
Lester, it won't happen. He may snap South Africa in other respects, but to prevent South Africa from attending the next G20, it's unlikely to happen, because that doesn't depend on him. It's a decision of members of the G20. South Africa is a member of the G20, and it doesn't depend on him. If you had seen that, Lester, a few weeks ago, he spoke about hosting of the G20, and he's starting to talk about the G2, that's him and China. Now, if you look at that, he's finding this emerging of China as a big challenge to him. But if you speak about the G2, you're looking at about 43% of the global GDP. So he's looking at big players in his corner. And that's unlikely to happen. He's trying to court China, because China is hosting the next APEC next year to try to develop some form of alliances. But China has embedded in its policy the question of the developing world and how to interface with that, the question of equality, the question of a global sharing of resources and economic development, which Donald Trump is totally opposed to. So it's antithesis of those issues. And I think this confusion that you see, the challenges that he's seeing domestically, I think they've just agreed in terms of lifting the shutdown of the government. So there are a lot of challenges that he's confronted with that he can't properly navigate, that are creating these tensions globally.
I'm not seeing many other countries vocalizing their displeasure with Donald Trump's stance. South Africa, the US, and the UK are part of a troika of countries that then plan the next few G20 summits. South Africa this year, the US 2026, and the UK in 2027. With Donald Trump's isolating of South Africa, it leaves the UK then standing, well, who are we meeting with? Should we be expectant of other countries, particularly those who seemingly have better relationships with Donald Trump in the US, to tap him on the shoulder and tell him, well, this isn't the way we do things around here?
I don't think they are going to do that. If you see what the Europeans have adopted, they've adopted a position where they try to court South Africa against the Americans. And South Africa has been badly navigating that space, what I call a family feud between the transatlantic partners. So South Africa can manage that strategically. So what you are likely to see now, the consultation will run smoothly between the United States and the United Kingdom. I don't think the United States will keep on even talking to South Africa. They would want to renege on every decision that was taken from Johannesburg. They would want to obliterate completely any reference to the Johannesburg summit and start to build on a total different new approach. But that will be unfortunate, because this is the first G20 in Africa. It sends a negative message to to the African continent. So he's losing a key constituency that everyone is battling to court, and the United States is losing out in the process. But it's not only South Africa, Lester. It's the behavior that we're seeing from the United States, the self-isolation that is taking place, that is doing great harm to the U.S. foreign policy.
Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, really appreciate your time. Former diplomat and now foreign policy and risk analyst.